I'm Ariana. If you're new here, welcome to the space where we deconstruct makeup looks to upgrade your makeup skills bag. Today we're getting into this really pretty pop of color lower lash line shimmer soft glam eyeshadow look. Okay, so we are starting off with a bare lid. This look is really easy to create, and I feel like this goes really well with wedding season. If you are wearing something that is pretty minimal and pretty basic, beige, neutral, this is a really great way to add a pop of color in an interesting minimal way. So the palette that we're using today is the ColourPop Going Coconuts palette, but you can use any neutrals palette that you have for the top lid. So I used a dark brown shade, and I'm using like a shader brush, which is basically just a short dense brush to pack on this dark brown on the outer corner only. So I'm basically kind of trying to create like a little outer corner wing with the eyeshadow, and then I cleaned up the brush and I'm buffing out the edges. This is going to make it easier to blend in the next shade, and we're going for kind of like a faded wing on the outer corner with the darkest part touching the lash line, and then we're going to kind of gradually go from dark to light from the lash line up to the crease. So after you kind of buffed out that dark brown shade, I went in with a blending brush with a lighter brown shade. So we're going to kind of like go from shade to shade and go from dark to light, as I said, and just create that beautiful gradient. And then we're also going to basically define the outer corner. So I did take the third shade, which is just a lighter version of the middle brown shade, and I took that and put it above my crease, and I brought it to the kind of like nose bridge area, like that piece where your eyebrow bone kind of goes into the side of your nose. This is kind of working with your face structure and working with your bone structure to make the eyeshadow look and like the shades that you're putting on as natural as possible. So after I kind of buffed that in, I went in with like a bone, like pale white shade, an off-white shade, and I put that on my brow bone just to kind of separate the darker shades from the lid. And then I just went in with a shimmer shade. So I didn't do like a base shade on the lid in that negative space. I just went ahead and popped in a gold shade, and I'm basically just filling up the areas that I didn't put any shadow on. If you want to kind of make this a little bit more bright or show out a little bit more, I would recommend putting on eyeshadow in that space before you put on the shimmer, but I kind of wanted to keep this as natural looking as possible. And I was also kind of going for more of a natural reflective kind of eyeshadow look instead of like a shimmer, like a harsh shimmer on my lid. And lastly, I went in with a really light shimmer shade, and I put that in the inner corner just to give myself a nice beautiful little highlight, and then also kind of marry everything together and make it look like there's a really nice kind of gradient and flow going on from the inner corner to the outer corner. Lastly, I went in with that dark brown shade, and I'm just kind of deepening up that outer corner because I really want a lot of definition on the outer corner. This is going to be something that really uplifts the eye and creates an illusion of an open inner corner, and then a really snatch uplifted eye in the outer corner. Going in with some eyeliner, this is the Half Magic eyeliner. This one is pretty interesting because of the tip that it has. It allows you to create the thinnest eyeliner with like a lot of control just because of the way that they created the tip. So I'm using this to create a really thin wing. I don't want the wing to overpower the eyeshadow look since we are going in with like a heavy lower lash line. I don't want to create like a really thick bold wing, but I do kind of want to accentuate the shape that I'm kind of creating with the eyeshadow to lift the eyes and then kind of wing it out as well. Now I'm going in with that dark brown shade one more time just to kind of blend it in with the outer corner. So I do want an eyeliner moment. I feel like the upper eyeliner really does something with the rest of the eyeshadow and just completes it, but I still want kind of like a soft wing at the end. So it still has that like dark eyeliner look to it, but it's like a softer wing. So that is basically it for the upper lid area. I'm going in with some mascara. This is my favorite mascara. Again, I will have all of the products linked in the video if you want to check them out. But as always, there are layers and phases to these looks, so you can definitely stop here. This is kind of like a nice soft glam reflective shimmer eyeshadow look with just mascara. I also went ahead and cleaned up the outer corner with some concealer just to sharpen that up to get it as sharp as possible. And this is also a step that I never skip because this is what's going to make your eyes look more symmetrical and just make your eyeshadow look much cleaner. So I went ahead and cleaned it up with some concealer, and now I'm just kind of blending that into whatever's going on underneath my eye. So again, you can literally just stop here. You don't need falsies, you don't need to do the lower lash line, but of course we're going to go through the phases of getting more dramatic as we go. But let me know which phase you would stop at, depending on how comfortable you are with wearing like really dramatic makeup, or depending on where you're going or what you're wearing. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the lower lash line. So for the pop of color, I'm going in with like a greenish shimmer shade. This is the ColourPop Mint to Be palette. I will link it, but if it doesn't exist anymore, I will link something similar. And also, I want to mention that the pop of color does not have to be green. I do feel like this kind of like green shimmer shade that I'm going to use goes really well with the gold. So just be mindful of like the shades that you're using. If you want to use like a blue or something like that, maybe it would look better with a silver shimmer. So just kind of experiment and see, and it also depends on what you're wearing. So the first thing that I did for the lower lash line is I'm lining my waterline. This is the tint eyeliner. This is a really black eyeliner that I like to use on my lower lash line, and then I just went in with the matte version of this kind of like green turquoise shade, and I'm using a pencil brush to literally line my lower lash line. So I'm trying to get as close to the lash line as possible. I personally do not like a really blown out lower lash line because I feel like it really makes my face just look heavier. So I try to keep the lower lash line when I smoke it out as close to the lash line as possible, because I want to keep it really like controlled in the area that the eyeshadow is going. So depending on what looks good on you and what you're comfortable with, you can smoke it out, but if you don't want to smoke it out too far, then keep the blending to a minimal. And then I went ahead and went in with that shimmer shade that matches the matte shade. I went ahead and put on the matte shade first just to kind of build up that color. Since this is the only kind of pop of color that we're going with, I wanted it to kind of like stand out as much as possible and be as solid as possible. So I kind of just layered the two. So that's basically it. I went in with some mascara, and this is the second phase of this look. You can stop here if the lashes are not your thing. I think it looks totally fine if you like your natural lashes without falsies, or even if you have lash extensions. So this is what this looks like, but I am going to go ahead and show you guys what falsies look like with this. So these are the Lily lashes. I believe these are in the style Miami. I will double check and I will link, but I'm going to go ahead and pop these on. So quick little lash tutorial. I like to add the lash glue onto the entire band, and then I like to secure the lashes on my lid from the middle, then the outer corner, and then the inner corner. And if your eyes get watery and you find that like lifting happens often, I like to put the middle of the lash band more towards the outer corner than the actual middle of the lid. This way the inner corner isn't as close to your eye's inner corner, and when your eyes do get teary, it doesn't really make contact with the lash band, so there shouldn't be any lifting. That is my kind of like little hack, just to minimize the lifting and problems with lashes. So this is the final look with all the bells and whistles. I really like how this came out, and also want to mention you can definitely play around with this with your eye color. This green, I feel like it goes really well with my eye color. But as always, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think of the look. If you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe and like this video. It really does help me out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!